World-class long jumpers do this 6 strides out because they've done this, this, and this. It isn't 6 strides out, you need to do this. You see what I'm saying? And so there's things I don't know because there's things technologically we can't measure. So what I do is I coach where the landmarks are, and then I try to think, okay, for flow state, what would you have to be thinking, doing, or operating for those 2 landmarks to connect?
Yeah.
That's as risky as I'll take, because sometimes they'll say, why don't you say this to the athlete? Because I don't know that connection. So I'm not going to coach something that might be an effect of something we're not seeing earlier.
Yeah. That's like get frustrated when people are like really punch up that drive knee and they focus on a drive knee. I always felt like a drive knee was a result of takeoff.
And if you run through the penultimate, then the heel comes to the butt. And because it's a short lever, the lead leg gets high.
Yeah.
If you block on the penultimate or you gear on it, you're always going to have a low drive knee.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's out of the control of the athlete trying to drive the knee unless their takeoff's better.
The height of the lead knee is a litmus test of how you ran through the penultimate. The long trail leg is a product of how well you ran through the takeoff.
Yeah.
Because if you're under or you block, you always get swastika. Even though you try to do you can't get that reflex line, because it's a reflex line. The only way to get it is to run through the takeoff. See, this free takeoff has destroyed American vaulting, because we got all these people trying to jump at the takeoff, so they block and jump straight up, and they don't load poles. It's the biggest Soviet disinformation project that the Russians ever created. And Buka promotes it just like he shortened the pegs and did everything else because he doesn't want anybody coming after his marks. So people will ask him, did Petrov, did you guys work? Yes, I must jump. I've got one vault where the poles in Buka are. I got video files for days where there isn't some flexion of the pole while his takeoff foot's on the ground. I got one vault that might be a free takeoff.
Yeah.
And he had to drop the lead knee to catch the swing.
Dmitry Markov.
So if he drops the lead leg on time and he catches the double on the top, then he vaults okay. But if he can't time that up, he's no heights. And he's always hurt.
It's funny because Pat was talking to Petrov, and Petrov was saying right off the ground the only thing Buka thought about doing was moving his arms forward and rowing as hard as he could. And it kind of maybe goes along with a free takeoff, because if you look at I looked at his video a lot last night, and he's not rowing and moving his arms forward.
He has the greatest dislocation of anybody because he has the greatest velocity of anybody.
Yeah.
So he's got the greatest stretch reflex of anybody. So his hand moves from here to here faster than anybody because he's created the greatest stretch reflex on the serratus, lat, teres minor, teres major, rhomboid. It's like a depth jump. There's a depth where you can rebound really good and you get outside of that. So there's another thing, if you release too much and you don't have that connection, that's as bad as blocking. So the fiber head, the beginners that everything goes, well, they don't that's not a stretch reflex. That's a total amortization of the musculation. So every entity in a reflex loop it's a spectral deal. Blocking is bad, too much release is bad. But with you guys, you need to be closer to too much. If you're anywhere near the midline of block, then you're going to have to jimmy shit on the swing. Because it's a metronome deal. If you release, you want a nice takeoff and you want it to go near the sail piece, but you want it as low as possible to get away so that the pole speed is fast, the weight's down on the metronome. if you hit bottom arms or you lock out, the angle goes real high real fast. The weight moves up the metronome on the pole and the pole stalls. It's just basic lever physics. And Bubka, you know, his takeoff angles are 18 degrees. Because he's running 10 meters per second.
Yeah.
Now, the slower the long jumper, the higher their angle of takeoff is. So women, like Jackie Joyner and Heike Drexler and all that, they were 20 to 24 degrees.
Yeah.
Because they're running 9 meters per second.
Yeah.
Carl Lewis, Powell, and those guys, they're 18, 17. Carl's got a 14 degree takeoff angle that went 29 feet. Because it's a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 times horizontal to 1 times vertical to go far. And the vault, you know, when you study it, I mean, the pole's going to pick you up some. You know, all you got to do is be in the neighborhood of a long jump takeoff, and that is instinctual. Like, the greatest long jumpers run through the penultimate and run through the board. They try to run to the other side of the pit.
Yeah.
The free leg is what creates the greatest vertical impulse. And to have the free leg time up and be high, you have to run through the penultimate. And that's why they get displacement on the board. The greatest long jumpers are on the board farther, the foot's farther behind them when it releases from the board. The kids that block and get all that height early, what goes straight up comes straight down. So one of the things you learn in long jump biomechanics is people take the impulse formula. You know, you want to be off the ground as fast as possible. That's for inelastic objects, like billiard balls. The human body is a series of springs. So we amorticize, we collapse when we load. So like a world-class sprinter, when they're in mid-stance, there's that much flexion. Their foot's totally flat. There's some give so that they can clear and push up to buy time to do the deal. So we amorticize. You know, even if you try to be strong and tall, when you plan as you run through, there's some yielding here so that you can clear the foot and go up. So because we amorticize, you have to use calculus. You can't use linear equations like on billiard balls. It's spring theory. We have these springs working in 3 degrees of rotation. So not only are we amorticizing, but we're yielding and twisting and folding and flexing and all of this. It's a huge human spring. So we can't use linear equations of get off the ground fast to have a good takeoff. There's a unique amount of time you need to be on the ground for how fast you run and how good your spring integrity is. Does that make sense? So some of these cues, they may work for a certain person. Like a person think get off the ground fast if they're slow twitch fibers and they're running X, that cue may work and time up for them beautifully. But it's dangerous to mass apply a cue. Because what if you're running, or Tommy Skipper's running, get off the ground quick, you guys will quick jump it, you won't load the pole. So for Carly, you know, maybe get off the ground quick would be a good cue. I don't think it is, but it might be because of her speed and her musculation and all that. Where with you guys, you and Tommy, that is the worst possible cue in the world to use. Because you guys are loading big ass poles, 5-10 poles, 11 flexes. You got to put energy into the pole. So, and it's like hurdlers. When hurdlers blow it, is they'll block a little bit because they're getting too close to the hurdle. When they block, they're going to rise early and they don't displace. And so they go higher over the hurdle than they should. And so then they collapse a lot more when they land on the other side because they're coming from a higher height. And so then they feel that collapse and they go, God, I got to get out of here. And they push and they get even closer to the next hurdle. It's just a series of cataclysmic occurrences. And it all started with a block premature takeoff. They didn't displace into the hurdle. And again, you know, coaching all these events, it's not I'm a genius. I just figure some shit out. It's like, wow, hurdlers block, they go straight up and they collapse and boom, that's bad. Long jumpers block, they go real high and it looks good and people in the stands are going, wow, you got up on that one. They're not jumping far. And then a kid will come down the runway and miss the timing of that punch and he'll just run off and go, whoa, shit, and they PR by a foot. And I'm like, dude, you ran off. I missed the pop. Man, if I'd had pop on that jump, I'd have been 2 foot PR. No, you'd have had a 1 foot less than your PR. So sometimes we get coached into subtly over time thinking a principle is a principle.
Right now at the Home Depot, you can get Dad the 6-gallon rigid wet dry bag for just
That's what I do in clinics. I sit up there, I feel bad, but basically I spend 90 minutes debunking myths. I'm like, this doesn't happen. Here's film. Here's 6-year-old kids that are speaking. Here's junior high kids. Here's high school sprinters. Here's college sprinters. Here's world-class sprinters. What do they all have in common? This happens. Not this, not that. This happens. I mean, we got little kids in speed camp. You tell them to push for 4 steps and then just gradually stand up and run and feel it get fast. I mean, we got photo sequence these guys. I mean, and you put them by Donovan and Bruni's, the 45, 55, 65 positions. 6 years old. Boom. We're in Jamaica teaching this course for instructors for all over the Caribbean. And Lauren Seagrave was teaching this real elaborate hurdle teaching sequence and shit. The teachers were falling, it was hot and shit. So they took a break, went up in the stands in the shade, and we're having these little kids, barefoot, you know, poor as hell. They'd been watching, and they come sneaking out, and they were doing these things perfect. Just watched. Free, never been coached, just perfect.
So how do you get the kids away from the bullshit and the crap that they've been taught to? I mean, obviously you break it down.
Yeah, I think the art of coaching here is you pick the worst cancer, and if the athlete changes, a little bit of risk taker, tries it, and it feels a little bit better, then you know, okay, they got a little bit of faith in you. Next cancer, you know, and you just grow the faith. And there's an art, you know, you got to pick the best cancer because you know, like you could be attacking a real problem, but that cancer may be set up by 3 or 4 other cancers. Instead of spending a week dealing with these 5 cancers, you just fix one and the other 3 cure. All right.
What time do you think we're going to be out here tomorrow?
How's